Hi everyone, welcome back. You can see I have my friend and makeup artist Nikki LaRose with me.
Hi.
We're back because we have another makeup mistakes video, and this is a topic I can't believe we haven't talked about.
I know, bronzer.
Bronzer. We are self-proclaimed bronzaholics, and we also fall victim to some of these mistakes.
Absolutely. Nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. We all make mistakes with
I mean,
bronzers.
I'm pretty perfect. No, I'm kidding. No, not at all. Absolutely not. I've seen the comments talking about both of our bronzer, and we're gonna talk about these mistakes.
It happens. Yeah.
Okay, so bronzer. I mean, gosh, where do we start? I think we need to talk about what bronzer is versus contour.
Yeah, I actually get that question a ton.
All the time. To be fair, I would say makeup brands nowadays are kind of blending the concept of bronzer contour, right?
Yes, I'd say like as a consumer, and even for me, I think the line between what a bronzer looks like and what a contour product looks like is so similar that like, I don't blame you for being confused. Like this sounds bad because I'm a professional makeup artist, but like, I can't even tell what the difference is sometimes.
I think it's just because they're trying to like blur the line here because they know that the average person really isn't looking at their bronzer or their contour being like, let's get real specific with this.
Yeah.
This is contour, this is bronzer. I think it's really only professionals that would go out and buy a very specific contour and a very specific bronzer product.
Even as a makeup artist, I still want products that are going to be good for both because like ultimately that's just easier.
What is the difference between bronzer and contour?
So a contour is going to be more of like a cool based color. So meaning it's going to have like more of like a gray, cool tone to it. Whereas bronzer, you want to think of like the warmth of the sun, so warmer tones and more like golden tones.
Like the oranges and browns.
You're going to see typically a lot of like orangey tones with bronzers. And so you wouldn't want to take a bronzer that's got more of an orange base to it and contour with it because it's not going to do what you want it to do. So contour is meant to be a shading product. So it's meant to illuminate, it's meant to define and basically
literally create
shadows.
Yes. Yeah.
So like let's say, you want to shorten your forehead or you want to make your cheekbones pop even more. You would create a little shadow with a contour product.
Right, because if you're literally standing in a shadow, it would be kind of like a gray, dark.
Think of it this way. If you had really big cheeks naturally you would have a shadow underneath that cheek.
Right.
So if you don't and you want to create that kind of look and that illusion, then you would cheat and you would use a contour product to pop that shadow.
And that shadow isn't going to be glowy and bronzy.
No,
or like,
and that's going to be
orangey.
such a good mistake to touch on, is not using something that's glowy or orangey to contour.
Right. And also from my understanding, you're putting contour in different areas than you would put bronzer.
Absolutely, and you're also using a lot less. Bronzer, you want to think in terms of you would put it where you want that sun-kissed look. And so when you think about like where the sun hits your face, the sun is going to hit mainly, obviously it's going to hit your whole face, okay? But what you're going to see is it's always going to hit the highest point of your face first. So the top of your forehead, the sides of your forehead, even along your temple, it's going to hit. And especially on the top of your cheek, like the biggest part of your cheek, including the apples of your cheek, and also the bridge of your nose. So right across your nose, that's where you would get that sun-kissed look.
Right, where you would get a sunburn.
So that's where you want to think about where to put your bronzer. Anywhere the sun would hit you naturally and give you that sun-kissed look. Yes, all of the high points.
Do you have to do both contour and bronzer? Because I'll say I never do contour on myself.
I don't either. I never contour my face. It's very like, this is where makeup is very like subjective. It's just because I like something doesn't mean that it's going to work for everyone or look good on everyone or be everyone's cup of tea. And like, that's where makeup is fun. You play around. If you don't like contour, kick it out. Like, don't do it. Just do bronzer.
And it's not that bronzer can't give you dimension to your face. It definitely does. This is one of the reasons why I love bronzer. It gives definition.
But there are a lot of mistakes that you can make choosing a bronzer. I think that's gonna be really important to talk about.
Okay, so then let's go ahead and get into that. Okay. That was a long explanation, but I feel like we all need to hear it. All right, so well then tell me how we choose a bronzer.
A couple of tips about bronzer. So you wanna pick typically a shade that's at least 2 to 3 shades deeper than your skin tone. So whatever that may be, you want to stick to shades that are in that range. And you'll know too, like once you try on a bronzer, let's say you're in a store and you're swatching it, you'll know right away if it's going to work for you.
Right.
You should have that intuition of if it's too dark or if it's too light. If it's not popping enough on your skin with the first swipe, then it's probably too light. If it's going on way too pigmented that it's probably too dark. So try to find something that's right in the middle.
How about as we get into like deeper skin tones? Are we still like, are any of the rules changing?
Okay. No, same rules apply.
Well, how about choosing, I mean, I even did an Instagram video about this, like the difference between a powder and a cream. Like I know I tend to use creams more because they just feel more natural to me, but there was a time
you hated it. I remember this.
I hated cream bronzer because I was like, this is so confusing to me. Is it contour? It can't look natural. Like,
how do I blend it? What brush am I going to use?
Yeah.
Like, absolutely. And it's always personal preference with makeup. And we have to remember that. Just because I love a cream bronzer and Susan loves cream bronzer.
I love how you loves.
It doesn't mean that you're going to love it. And that's totally fine. That's why there is 2 options out there. So if you're not a big cream person, or you're just, you have a difficult time blending it and applying it, then definitely stick to a powder bronzer and a nice fluffy brush.
So mistake number 1 is just confusing contour and bronzer, right?
Yeah.
So then that leads though into mistake number 2, and that's choosing the wrong type of bronzer, because there are so many types of bronzers, right?
So many types.
So I realized like telling people there's really no such thing as the wrong type of bronzer, I suppose, because I use powder, cream.
We like it all.
Blends.
Even liquid.
Yeah, which is starting to become a thing.
There's even liquid bronzers.
Yeah, the ones that come in those tubes. Yeah, for sure. But I suppose if there's a specific look you're trying to go for, you might be using the wrong type of bronzer, right?
Exactly. Like, so just a small example would be, if you want more of a natural bronze look, then I would suggest going for a cream. I think they blend out, they look a little more seamless when applied, like, correctly. And they just look really natural because they have more like a skin-like finish, because your skin, your skin's like more glowy naturally, and the finish of a cream bronzer is just gonna look more like skin. So if you want more of a natural bronze look, then I would definitely stick to cream formulas. Maybe some of the liquids, although I do personally think they're a little bit more difficult to blend out. So go back to cream. I think cream's gonna be the most user-friendly if you want a natural bronze look. Now let's
and that dewy look too. I love a dewy look, dewy, healthy look,
And if you just don't wanna look like you have a lot of bronzer on, creams are just gonna look more natural.
That makes sense. And then powder would be for more of like a...
powder is just more detectable on our face. So we have to remember that. So when you have powder on your skin, it's just gonna be more detectable. Like, meaning you'll be able to see it, right? It's not gonna look as natural because it's mattifying, it's a little more pigmented.
So really that would be the reason to think about what type of bronzer you're using. There's not necessarily any hard and fast rule.
No,
it's just really think about the finish that you want.
Thinking about your personal preference, what you find easier to use, and what kind of finish or look you're going for. So
okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
All right, so then mistake number 3 might be choosing the wrong shade, because we were talking about confusing contour and bronzer. That's essentially choosing the wrong shade, right?
It's part of it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely a part of it. If you're choosing a bronzer that you want to use all over your face, you might want to stick to bronzers that are on the more neutral side, like meaning they're not too orangey, they're not too cool, they're right there in the middle in that sweet spot. Or if you're really going for it and you want to stand out even more, go for something that's, really warm, really gonna give you that golden look to your skin.
You know what's funny is I've seen also comments about both of us having like too orangey of bronzer on. I think one thing to point out is that we do definitely, like cameras, depending on like the iPhone especially, which I tend to shoot on a lot, pulls more like a yellow orangey kind of tone for some reason. So whenever I'm applying like foundations or bronzers, people are like, that's really yellow or really orange on you.
That's something that I see across the board on social media. iPhones specifically, phones in general, they pick up more like...
And then the lights kind of change the way makeup might look.
There's so many factors.
Yeah.
Yes, there's so many factors. And Susan's makeup actually looks completely different in person than it does on camera. Like cameras and professional lighting and all, there's so many factors that on camera, they can change and alter the appearance of your makeup. And so it's something you have to take into consideration.
I know. But when we get some orangey bronzer going on, maybe we just got a little bronzer happy.
Or we tried one that we probably shouldn't have tried. And so, that's what we said in the beginning. We're guilty of mistakes too. Yeah. Nobody's perfect here.
You know what? That should maybe be a mistake. Like trying a new makeup product in general on a day where you wanted to like look good. I mean, at some point you have to try something or you're never going to be able to know what it looks like.
What's so funny is Susan tries to make me try new products, like brand new products on her all the time when we're shooting these videos. And I'm like,
here, figure this
I'm like, oh no, I'm sorry. I draw the line on certain things. I draw the line on quite a few things.
She'll like touch something.
She's like, you don't want to try it? I'm like, no, because I don't know what it's gonna look like.
Risk it.
Yeah, I have no idea what it's gonna look like on camera, so it's a big thing.
Yeah. The next mistake is too much shimmer.
Yes, too much shimmer is it could just be kind of messy.
Yeah.
To be honest, like you wouldn't take a highlighter, let's say, right?
Yeah.
And put it all over your skin unless you're going for that look. But you wouldn't necessarily want a shimmery product all over your face because then you don't really have balance. You're just glowy all over, and there's no balance between more matte and like skin-like finishes and then the glow. So you want to have that nice balance. And I think that glowy bronzers with shimmer them are beautiful, but you don't necessarily want to apply them all over the skin. So I would stick to something with a very either mild amount of shimmer. Ideally, I would stick to ones that don't have them.
Yeah.
To be quite honest.
You know, I've been using lately, there's that duo that NARS always comes out with during the summer, that like the one where it's like Orgasm and Laguna.
Yes.
And Laguna has a little bit of, that bronzer
And
has
that's
a little
what I
bit
mean.
of shimmer, right?
It has a little bit, and that's totally fine because it's very like, it's not like a chunky, glittery bronzer. And so that's really, actually I should clarify, that's really what I'm talking about is if you're gonna go for a shimmer, go for something that's really, really fine and almost like not there. It's like just kind of gives you like a little hint of something where you're not sure if it's glow or not, but it's not overwhelming.
But if you can see, like, it's almost iridescent in the pan.
Yes.
That's too much for all over, right?
If you can see, like when you're holding the product up, that there's like chunks of glitter.
Or like it looks like
it's gonna be a lot on.
You know when you like kind of go like this and
you
can
see the reflective?
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Yeah, so sticking to something that's a little more on the satiny side, and satin meaning like it has like a little hint of shimmer, like that NARS one that you just mentioned.
Okay.
That's got that little tiny hint where it's like almost not there.
Yeah.
That would be more of a satin finish. So that actually leads into our next mistake, which is skipping our neck and chest. And one thing I want to point out, like, you know, during the summer, like let's say you're like Susan and I, where you don't want to tan your face because it's harmful, right?
We never tan our face.
Never.
Unless it's sunless tanner.
Exactly, but let's say you like a spray tan or you like a self-tanning lotion that you do yourself, any of that, like where you're using a tanning product, so your body ends up being more bronzed, but then your neck and then your chest even tends to be, like your face, a little bit more pale. Bronzer is a great tool to bring in to give you some more evenness. So like to even out, you know, your face complexion to the rest of your body's complexion. So another mistake to me would be, let's say you're doing a bronzer all over your face, you're wanting that sun-kissed look, but then you're neglecting your neck and your chest.
Oh yeah.
This is a big thing. This is a really big thing. And this is something that I'm guilty of because my chest doesn't really see the sun typically ever. Like this is a rarity. And same for you, I feel like. And so a lot of the time our chest can be really fair as well, especially in comparison to like our arms, let's say, or like our legs or our hands. And so a mistake would be ignoring your neck or your chest if you need it. Not everyone needs it, but if you do need to bring it down so you have some cohesiveness, do it.
You know, I see comments sometimes where people are like, you really, like, your makeup is not matching. And I think, you know, sometimes like we forget because we shoot multiple videos in one day.
Yes.
So in one video, I might have been wearing something that was like this high.
Oh my gosh,
And
yes.
so I match here and then I change for the next video and I've got something that's way more low cut. And then if one of us doesn't remember to hit my chest area, comments galore. Because it's
Susan
like,
loves to do this to me.
All right, so then could we argue that one of the mistakes, also a bronzer mistake, is not blending enough, or is it overdoing it? Or is it both?
Both, absolutely. I mean, we're here talking about all the mistakes you could possibly make, and not blending enough could look really patchy on your skin, and that's what you don't want. That's such a bad mistake to make. I hate to say it with like bronzer. You don't want a patchy bronzer.
Yeah.
Right. And then one way to avoid that, I'm going to kind of circle back to your application, is when you're applying, like, let's say a powder bronzer, you don't necessarily, unless you got a lot of skill, and I'll hand it to you if you do, but you don't want to apply a powder bronzer onto like a wet base, like meaning your foundation. Like let's say you just applied your liquid foundation, you haven't set it with like a translucent or a setting powder. If you go straight in with your powder bronzer, it can skip and it could be really hard to blend.
It's just the way that they're reacting to each other.
Absolutely.
The wetness is holding onto that powder, so it's going to look like it's a little bit
And it's
stronger.
actually grabbing that pigment and it's locking it in right away. Whereas let's say you set your whole foundation with like a little bit of translucent powder. It doesn't have to be a lot, just like a nice thin veil all over your
like
skin.
With the powder, big puffy brush.
Exactly, when you go in with your powder bronzer, it's gonna glide on and it's not gonna skip. And so it's gonna be so much more easy.
That makes sense. Or go just like creams and creams, right? Like
Exactly.
foundation, concealer, creams
and creams are going to play well together. Powders and powders are going to play well together. It's just the science of makeup. So the advice I would give you is when you're applying your bronzer, so you don't overdo it, try to make sure you're applying your bronzer with natural light. Because lighting is very tricky. It's very finicky. And the best way to apply a bronzer or your makeup in general, let's just put that out there, is with natural lighting. Natural light is the truest indicator of what your makeup is going to look like. Right. That's it. So if your makeup looks good in natural light, it's gonna look good in any kind of light.
How about the right tool? What would be the right tool to use? For me, it's like I'm always using specific brushes, but what brushes?
So for like an all-over bronzer, if you want it to look really natural and really just like sun-kissed and more effortless, you would want to do a fluffy, soft brush.
And that would be with a cream or with a powder?
Powder, sorry. Okay. That's specific for powder because it's going to give you like a really light wash of color. The smaller the brush, the more color payoff you're going to get, the more intense that color payoff is going to be when it hits your skin.
Because that density is soaking up that much more color and placing it.
It's packing on it's packing a punch. Whereas the larger the brush, the more diffuse, the more soft, the more natural the finish is going to be. So keep that in mind.
Something that was really game-changing for me when it came to the cream bronzers was when you told me to change my brush to, I think I was using like a slanted brush almost, like
an angled.
I was using like an angled brush, but I want to say it was like not dense enough for my cream bronzer. And you got me using that one that I love from IT Cosmetics. That's like a flat brush, really dense. Yeah. And then you told me to stipple it.
Yes.
And that was like a huge, I remember that was like a game changer for me years ago.
And that goes back to like not over blending, because Susan was over blending her cream bronzer and then she was like, I'm not seeing it. So like she was layering more and more and then probably overdoing it because you weren't seeing it, right? So if you want to blend like a cream bronzer on your skin, I like brushes that are more of a dense but have a fluffiness to them. So they're almost like a hybrid. So they're dense and they're packed with bristles, but they have some kind of softness and fluff to them.
Okay.
Those are gonna be so easy to use. And so the one we were talking about, the IT Cosmetics one, that is like, it makes it so easy.
Yeah. So I think we've officially talked a lot. If you guys have any, questions or comments, definitely tell us below.
Yeah, if we left anything out, please let me know. I feel like we talked about everything, but I do still feel like there's maybe some tips.
There's always
left in there. So if we left anything out that's really important, that you're like, why didn't they talk about this? Let me know.
Yeah,
I'm curious.
Sure. I mean, and Nikki will respond back. She can respond in the comments. You can find her on YouTube. She's been posting consistently. I'm so proud of you. I love the videos. They're very informational. I'll leave all her information in the description box. We're both on Instagram at Makeup by Nikki LaRose, at Susan Yara. And we'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye.